pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Vanderwater?
Here.
Mrs. Lesniak?
Here.
Mr. Tupper?
Here.
Ms. Hickman? Mr. Dudzinski?
Here.
Ms. Saban?
Here.
Mr. Sykes?
Here. As we all know, yesterday was election day. I'd like to congratulate those who were re-elected to their positions and those that were elected to new positions. Mike, congratulations. Mary Frances.
Thank you.
And Darcy, you're back. Ron, you're back. So, congratulations to all.
And to Doug Foster and
Oh, yeah,
to
Doug,
Jay
yeah.
Plumley, the new
Yeah,
justice.
Our new justice.
And Mike Holchansky, our
He
new
already, he
counselor.
said Mike first.
Oh, I didn't hear
Yeah.
that one. One more time.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the October 20th, 2021 town board meeting.
Moved.
Any discussion? Changes, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain, I wasn't here. Item number 1 is the public hearing on the 2022 town budget and special districts budgets. Entertain a motion to recess the regular meeting and go into public hearing mode for the presentation of the budget and to hear comments on those budgets. Entertain a
Move.
motion to that effect?
Moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are in public hearing mode. Greg, you have the floor. This is our comptroller, Greg Maxwell. This is his last dog and pony show he'll be showing us tonight after 14 years. He is retiring at the end of the year. Michelle, who's sitting at the table over here with the laptop, she is the new comptroller. She'll be taking those duties on in the future. So Greg is going to present the budget.
If I can get this to move.
You had it working this afternoon.
Very good.
Right?
Here we go. Okay, before I begin, just to let you know, I'll go through the budget and I'll answer them. Comments about the budget in general, if you like it, don't like it, I'd ask you to wait until the end of the presentation, you can address the board.
Greg, is that mic on? Okay.
You got to put it closer to your mouth.
Okay, is this better?
I don't know.
Doesn't sound like it's on.
I can hear some reverberation.
Yeah, it's green lights on, I don't know.
Well, I can speak up, that will help. But the town accounting system and financials, like any municipal government at the town level, is comprised of various funds, each with its own tax rates to provide service to different parts of the town. The amount that you pay in taxes really depends on where you live. That's really it comes down. We have approximately 46 different funds that we do accounting for, each with their own tax rate. So throughout the town, there are basically 46 different taxes that people pay. And again, it depends where you live. On this part of it, I've kind of changed what we've done in previous years. And I'm going to talk about our 3 biggest operating funds. The general fund, which is really 2 funds, and our highway fund. We have 2 general funds. One encompasses every part of the town, so everybody pays the tax rate in the general fund. We also have a general fund per town, which only applies to the people living outside the village of Baldwinsville. Also, the highway fund, only the people living outside the village of Baldwinsville pays taxes on it. Now, in the town-wide fund, some of the functions that we have is town board, the court, town supervisor, town clerk, myself, the attorneys, engineer. The one I always like to talk about is the highway garage. Everybody in the town pays for the highway garage. Highway administration, Doug over there, Parks and Rec, the historian, celebrations for the Memorial Day Parade, and of course the benefits and debt on the highway garage. So some of you that live in the village, if you're here, you may be thinking, well, the village has some of the same functions. They have a court, they have a trustees, they have a mayor and so forth. And why are we paying for a highway superintendent that has nothing to do with the village or a highway garage? That's all set in New York state law. The town really doesn't have too much to do with it. The B fund, which is the part-town general fund, is your planning board, zoning board, traffic signs, cable TV that we pay 14.29 for PAC-B. That's what we pay, 14.29 with the franchise fees, and related benefits. The highway is pretty much self-explanatory. It's the highway employees, the roads, and so forth. The total spending of those three funds, $4.9 million in 2022. That's an increase of $200,000 approximately, or 3.83%. When we look at a breakdown of where the money goes, the yellow and the blue, wages and benefits, 61% of the total is wages and benefits. So if you're looking at where to cut costs, you're really looking at people. Next one is consumables, expenses that have no lasting value. Lights, heats, postage, equipment repairs, so forth. Capital cost is items that have value. A new truck, a road, doing a new road, new computers, that's capital. And that is almost non-existent. We only have 3 securities of debt. And one of them is, I'll go over them as we go through. Salary and wages next year, $2,072,000. That's an increase of $48,000. And it says here that 2.4%. Well, that's a little bit misleading. I'll be very upfront about that, because one of the items in there, we have a reduction of $45,000 in the budget on wages. That's because this year we have both my salary and my replacement salary budgeted. Well, I'm not going to be here next year, as Claude so nicely said, so that's a reduction. If we factored that in, wages are going up a little bit more than 5% next year compared to what we have this year. The union employees, the bargaining union, 2.5% and 3%. 3% is for the people in the offices. 2.5% is for the highway employees. And these are union contracts. The office employees, their contract runs out 12/31/2022. The highway is 4 years starting this year, so that's a while. The current labor markets conditions is what is causing the increase in wages. Minimum wage went up. You can go to McDonald's for $15 an hour. We have lifeguards that we have to pay. They're highly trained. They go through CPR training, first aid training, rec aid, same thing. They're taking care of the kids, monitoring the kids, and it's a snowball effect. Once one wage goes up, everything goes up, and that's what we're facing. The non-representatives, like 6 people not in a union in the town, they're full-time, they're getting a 3%, which is the same as the bargaining unit. And the budget does include 2 people that are expected to retire, and when they retire, we have to pay them for unused vacation, unused sick time, and that's in the budget for next year. And by the way, neither one applies to me, so everyone knows. I don't get sick days, I don't get vacation. So that's other people that are retiring. Benefits, up 9.5% next year, $914,000 in benefits. Now, one of the things that's not on here, in fact, I took the slide out, for every dollar the town pays in wages, we pay 44 cents in benefits. 44% of the wages is benefits. And that, even that number is a little bit low because we don't consider sick days as a benefit, vacation as a benefit. If we put them into it, our benefit rate would be way over 50% of payroll. But the benefit of New York State retirement, we are told what it is by New York State. They bill us. Social Security, Medicare, that's pretty self-explanatory, 7.65%, 6.2 on Social Security, 1.45 of payroll on Medicare, workman's comp. We're in a self-insured multi-municipal pool for workman's comp. That's actually, that's going up. I mean, we're expecting because of COVID and all that, that's going, some of them is workman's comp. We expect those rates to be going up. Unemployment, if somebody gets unemployment, we don't, the town, a few years ago, quite a few years ago, we elected to do a reimbursement system on unemployment instead of paying a percentage of payroll like private employers. Disability, well, that's self-explanatory. Health insurance is going up 10.63%. As you can see, total is 9.48%. New York State retirement. This year, we've got the bill. 15.97% of eligible payroll is what the town pays, which means that's what the taxpayers are paying. 16% of payroll for those people in retirement. All full-time employees have to be in New York State retirement. Part-time employees, it's up to them. It's optional. Next year is expected to go down. We'll see what happens. I mean, the state sets the rates, and it sets which tier you're on. And tiers, depending on when you're hired, is which, if you're on a tier 4, 5, or 6. Most of the people in the town is tier 4, which is the highest rate. And if you come to the town from another municipality or the county, you stay in the same tier. So we've had some people join the town that worked for the county, and they're coming in at tier 4, which is the highest rate. And you can see the rates that we've had since 2008. And 2008 is the year, I think you became town supervisor. Health insurance, the cost is 10.6% more. The rates are expected to go up between 5 and 10%. The town does have it participates in a self-insured insurance plan called OSEBA, and it's administered by UMR, United Healthcare subsidiary. All full-time eligible employees pay 25% of the premium. Part-timers pay 50% if they want to. Retirees over 65 are on a Medicare Advantage plan through MVP. And next year there could be 4 more employees on the insurance plan due to retirements. We know of 4 people that are either retiring, that are eligible to be on insurance, or they're going to retire during the year next year. And then their replacements are eligible for insurance. So that's what's driving their cost. Infrastructure, capital, $500,000 next year. That's really down $20,000. It's kind of simple to do this graph. New roads, repaving of roads is $475,000 in the budget. The highway garage equipment for the highway garage is $15,000. Building and grounds, and that's $8,000, and that's a lawnmower that they want to buy. And the computers we got more desktops. We recycle them about every 5 years. The computers in the buildings all under state contract from Dell. And that's really all of the projects. Now you may be asking, and here's a question we get every year, how about new trucks? And you see a lot of things about a new highway plow, $250,000. we set up a few years ago equipment reserves. So we fund an equipment reserve for highway equipment, the town highway superintendent's truck, building and grounds trucks, the building and grounds, parks, highway,
Codes?
and codes. So we buy them with cash. We don't go out and borrow money. We pay them by cash and we budget it into a equipment reserve and use that. Consumables, like I said earlier, that is your heat, light, things that have no lasting value that we're going to use up. And that's up 7%. And I think everyone here can agree, all you have to do is go to the grocery store and you know what prices are going up. We're facing the same thing on light, supplies, everything else. The high dollar items on consumables should be no surprise. Road salt tops the list at $225,000. Road repairs, fixing the potholes after the summer comes next. Equipment repairs, mostly highway. Legal, you can go right down property and casualty insurance. And one of the big items there is cybersecurity insurance that keeps on going up leaps and bounds. Canton Ward Senior Citizen Center, we contribute $67,000 for that. The highway equipment supplies, the fuel filters, all the stuff into the trucks. And you can go right down through the list. Electric heat, network administration is really the maintaining of our computer system. We have a bunch of antivirus, we have backups in-house, up on the cloud, trying to do everything we can to secure the information. Debt. Our total debt service in the general and highway funds is $122,000. That's principal and interest. That's the highway garage that we bought at foreclosure a few years ago. That's the only debt that we have in the general fund and highway fund, is the highway garage. Revenues, now, we've gone through the spending, we got to pay for it somehow. And we have really three sources of revenues: fees, miscellaneous incomes, licenses, things like that. The appropriated fund balance, which means that's surpluses that we have, funds we had not spent in previous years. The county likes to call it, the rainy day fund type thing. The appropriate name is appropriated fund balance. It's surplus. It's extra money not spent previous years. And property taxes. The non-property tax revenues is I missed that one. $157,000. Now there's a typo there, but we'll go through it. The non-tax revenues is, here's the list. $300,000 from the county to plow. Pilots, there is payment in lieu of taxes. So you see some of these big companies and you see an agreement so they don't have to pay taxes. We get $198,000. Mortgage tax, new house being built or refinanced, we get a portion of the mortgage tax. We're figuring $180,000. That is really a very subjective number. We don't know what we're going to get. We don't get a good trend. This year it's sky high. With interest rates now forecast to be going up, it could plummet downward. We just don't know. Parks and rec fees, our park programs bring in about $160,000. State aid for highway, we have 3 programs. One is called CHIPS, which is paving. Pave New York is another one where Doug gets. And severity on snow plowing, the state gives us. And that's about $167,000. Cable TV fees from Time Warner and Spectrum and Verizon, $127,000. State revenue sharing, about $100,000. The state has traditionally given money to local governments through a revenue sharing program. Last year, the then Governor Cuomo tried to eliminate it. he took it out of the budget. The legislature put it back in, but what they did is sales tax on the internet that the state gets, instead of giving to the county, it comes to the local governments. So the county get lost out on it, and we maintained it. What's going to happen in the future, don't know. Shared service agreement, that is our assessor, is also the assessor for the town of Lysander, and her cost, her payroll, benefits, and other expenses are shared between the two towns. We're expected to get about $78,000 next year that Lysander will give us. Court fines, that's the court next door, what they issue, and that's the town's portion. It's about a third or a little bit less than what they actually collect. Building permits, that's inter-fund fees on our engineer there. Some of his work is charged out to other funds, and that's what that is. And the rest, dog licenses, the land lease is a solar. Solar cells, we get $12,000 from the AES for the solar panels there at the landfill. And late fees on the taxes are $12,000. That makes up almost all of that, other revenue. Like I said, we appropriated fund balance at surpluses from the previous year. We're using $535,000 next year. We still have adequate money in reserve, but that's what we're using. So that leaves us to the last item, and it's really simple. Spending minus revenues minus appropriated fund balance equals property taxes. And they're up 6%. $2,865,000 is the property taxes. Now, how do we figure out tax rates? Well, we know how much property taxes. It's two ways. One is ad valorem, or it's the assessment on your house. The other way is a unit charge. Your house might be 1 unit, and we got 10 units in the district, you're going to pay 1/10 of that district taxes. That's the two methods. So if we talk about assessed value, you can see the assessed values have been going up. The assessed values in 2022 are 4% higher than the previous year, and 2021 was 4% higher. The last 3 years, assessed values have going up. And they'll probably be going up even more as new home sales are up 17, I think I just saw 17% higher than the assessed values, the home sales right now this year. And then you have Trey Brook, which is off of Route 48, and those houses are 500,000, 1.3 million, something like that. So that will bring up the total assessed value in the town. And the total assessed value in the town is $781 million. So that brings us to the tax rate. You got the assessed value, you got your property tax, you can calculate your tax rate. And the general fund, the entire town, so everybody in the town is going to pay $1.78 per thousand. If you live outside the village, you're going to pay another $2.18 per thousand of your house for highway tax. So if you had a $100,000 house, you're going to pay $178 in the general fund and $218 for highway. And to go right actually down to it, the average house in the town of Van Buren in 2021 is $129,000. That is the average. So what is that person going to pay? If you live inside the village, you're going to do the whole town, what we call the A fund. You're going to pay $229 on a $129,000 house. And that's 1.6% higher than the previous year. $7.71 is what you're going to pay. If you live outside the village, you're going to pay the same general fund, whole town. Like I said, everybody pays general fund. And then you don't pay anything for the per-town general fund because that's totally, we have no taxes there. And you're going to pay for the highway fund, $281. So $129,000 house outside the village of Baldwinsville will pay $510 in 2022, what, $8.27 more. But that's not all the taxes that you pay, unfortunately. We have what is called special districts or special revenue districts. These are very specific expenses, and you have to live within that district to pay them. So not everybody pays all these taxes. We have drainage funds, which that's for drainage. Biggest item is Seneca. Seneca drainage. Seneca Knolls off of Route 48 is where most of the money is going. The town in total is spending $98,000 on drainage. And this is stormwater drainage, so everyone is clear. And $89,000 of it's at Seneca Knolls area. Street lighting, well, that really talks about itself. Street lighting are the street lights. Everybody, if you have street lights near your house, you pay for them through your taxes. Total, it's my eyes are going bad, $169,000 we're paying for street lights.
Which is down,
And that is down.
because we switched to LED.
Yes, a couple of years ago, the town switched to LED lighting, and you can see under a lot of them are down. Sewers, sanitary sewers, and this is I wanted to talk about this one. In 2021, the town board signed an agreement with Onondaga County that Onondaga County is taking over the sewers. They have already taken over the maintenance and operations of the sewer districts. What we have in the budget is the bill from Onondaga County from 2020, the year 2020, that they billed us in April of 21. It's payable in January of 2022. So for what the county comes up and repairs the sewer districts. That's what's in there. The only other expense in there are 2 bonds. One is in Village Green that has 2 more years on it. And the homes you see here, the town built a pumping station. And we still have a debt on that. That's the only 3 items of debt the town has. Now, when the county took over the sewer districts, they gave the town $200,000. With the stipulation, it can only be used to pay down debt. So we have used money to pay down the debt on the pumping station, and we will be using any money that we need to pay off the debt in Village Green. So there's 2 more years in Village Green. And you notice here, most of the tax rates are 0 now. And we will have 1 more bill from the county for the first 6 months of repairs that they did, which we will get in April of 2022, and is payable in January of 2023. And then there will be no taxes in sewer. And any fund balance that we have on the agreement, we are supposed to return to the taxpayers of that district. I believe, and it's going to be a legal issue, last time I investigated it, and it happened to be with Kevin, by the way, we have to go to the state legislature and get a bill passed that allows us to refund. I believe that is the process, but the town board will be looking at that in the future. The last special district, water districts. Very simply, that's the fire hydrants near your house. We pay $78,000 for fire hydrants every year. And that is actually the entire budget. If you have any questions on the budget or the numbers, I can answer them. Any comments about the budget in general, if you like it, don't like it, please address it to Claude, he likes them.
Anyone have any questions for Greg? Gene?
Do they invest, do you invest, have money invested? I mean, whatever you have, you know, in your bank account? say-
Your fund balance, Gene, you're saying?
Is it
Night class.
invested in,
Well, the state of New York is very conservative on what they allow local governments to invest money in. We can't invest in the stock market. We cannot invest in mutual funds. Basically, we can invest at a bank that is where our money is totally secured. Now, I shouldn't say our money, your money is totally secured. On top of the FDIC insurance that everybody has, the bank has to provide collateral to the town that is equal to 100% of the balance. We also have investments in a joint municipal investment pool called NICLAS, which is allowed by New York State. And when interest rates go up, their interest goes up. And so we make more money. When interest rates come down, we get hit very quickly on the ordinance. But it's basically just a savings account. We have CDs, savings accounts in your place. That's about all we can invest in.
And just to, excuse me, kind of piggyback on that, the state restricts how much money they can accumulate and save, because the theory is you shouldn't be taxing people more than what you need. So you shouldn't be socking money away and having huge savings accounts or whatever, because then you're taxing too high. So there's limitations on that.
Years ago, when I started off, the state would like to say, you, at the end of December, you should have no money in the bank. You should have everything spent. Then in the year 2000, the laws of 2000, this is something I was talking about. The state passed a law that says we can keep a reasonable
Only a
fund
comptroller says
reasonable fund balance. Now, what's reasonable in Gene's eye may not be reasonable in my eye. So that becomes a conflict to the state. So they don't like to talk about that. But we have a reasonable fund balance based on the facts and circumstances of each fund. Highway needs more money. We have the rains we just had, washout on the road. You need money for that. Sewer, so they break, you need money for that. The street lighting, we got to take down almost for the science how much street lighting is going to be. Well, each fund, all 40-some funds are analyzed to see how much money we need, and we do keep separate accounting records on each fund. We operate, like we have 46 different companies. And that's how we have to do the accounting. Hope that answers the question.
Anyone else have any questions for Greg?
do the employees, do they pay into their retirement now? Or
Yes.
is that, they do it to pay it one thing?
They pay, some people at Tier 4 after 10 years do not pay anything.
Oh, really?
That's New York State.
By New York State under Comptroller McCall, way back when they had globs of money. And it was probably in the election year, he wanted to do the election. Then they learned the lesson because the economy tanked, and now employees pay between 3% and 3.5, newer hires, and they get to pay that until age 62, and they can't retire until age 62. That's Tier 6. Like I was in Tier 4, I have a whole different benefit package. Most of our employees are still Tier 4, which means they can retire 20 years and age 62 with no reduction benefits, 30 years of service, age 55. The newer employees, they have to work until 62. But they pay 3 to 3.5%.
Any other questions for Greg? Seeing none then, we'll ask for comments from the public. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this budget? It wasn't too bad.
Not bad.
Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the proposed budgets? I would, we asked the department heads to try to hold the line, not knowing where this pandemic is going, where it's been, and they, on honored our request. They submitted rational and rational and significant budgets for the areas they felt they needed the money the most, and I appreciate the department heads doing what they were asked. So I think the town board, we had 2 nights of budget sessions, about 3 hours each, and went through the budget, and I think we've put together a good package for 2022. So, anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone opposed to the spending package? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing. We'll go back to regular session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 2 is public hearing on local law D 2021, regulating areas for sale of cannabis. Entertain a motion to recess the regular meeting, go back into public hearing mode to hear comments on local law D 2021.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're in public hearing now to hear public comments on local law D 2021. Nadine, would you be so kind to explain D 2021?
Certainly. The local law that the public hearing is scheduled for this evening relates to cannabis retail dispensaries. For those who sat through the work session or through prior town board meetings, after the state legislature allowed cannabis to be used and sold in our state, they have allowed local governments such as the town the ability to regulate cannabis in 2 very limited capacities, one of which relates to cannabis retail dispensaries. The town has the option of either opting out, which means not allowing retail dispensaries within their town boundaries. If they choose to do that, they would have to pass a local law that would opt out by December 31st of 2021. If they opt out, they can opt back in at a later date. If you don't opt out, you've missed your bite at the apple. If you allow, if you don't opt out, if you remain in, which requires no action on behalf of the town, if you remain in, you do have the ability to limit where within your town cannabis retail dispensaries may be located. The Marijuana Control Board that has been established by the state legislature is similar to a liquor authority. They have almost entire exclusive control over these retail dispensaries. So what the town is allowed to do is simply say, essentially, where in the town and hours of operation. Signage, can't touch, anything relating to the use really is out of their hands. So within those parameters, those restrictions, the town, after referring the matter to the planning board ZBA, they received a recommendation back, and the recommendation from the planning board and ZBA was to allow retail cannabis retail dispensaries only in the general business district, no other districts, no residential districts, no industrial districts, only the general business. And the recommendation also came back, as I understand it, or actually, they did not give a recommendation on hours, that was the town board discussion.
Right.
Excuse me. So the local law that's before the town this evening, and that the public hearing is on, is for retail dispensaries to be located exclusively in the general business districts, to have a prohibition that they cannot be located within 500 feet of a public park. That's something that the town can impose. And that the hours of operation be limited to 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. One of the things I will note that they are allowed to have hours of operation, but you can't essentially have hours that are so limited and restricted that you prohibit it. You can't say you can have hours between, on Tuesday afternoons from 1 to 2 and that's it. They won't allow you to do that. So that's what the local law is that's before the board this evening for consideration. Is that something?
Yes, thank you. With that, I'd entertain any comments from the audience. Anyone that's in favor of this local law as Nadine presented? Mike?
Could you just identify where the general business districts in the town are?
That was,
The Seneca Knolls Plaza on Route 48 where the Big M is, and then Downer Street, basically in the vicinity of River Mall.
Thank you.
We're not in the village though.
We don't know what the village is going to do. They can do their own thing in the village. So, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone opposed to this local law? You want to speak?
yes, do I have to stand up?
It would be good, yes, maybe so the PAC-B can hear you.
Well,
Can you just introduce yourself?
I'm Joan Porter,
Okay.
in the town of Van Buren on Prairie Road. I think the thing that upsets me most about this, I am not in favor of cannabis being sold in our town, but what upsets me most is that citizens of the town of Van Buren were shortchanged by you. By not giving us the privilege of voting for or against this. And I understand there were about 6 other towns around us that were given the option, given the privilege of voting for or against it yesterday.
There's 19 towns and 12 villages in Onondaga County, and only 6 put it up for public vote.
So I'm curious as to why you didn't give us the privilege of voting. Is it because you were afraid we'd vote it down?
I can address that. It's my fault. I'm legal counsel. The state law actually says that cities and towns cannot put this to referendum on their own motion. What the state law says is only a village can do it on their own motion. The New York State Association of Towns is an organization that gives additional guidance to towns, and they too have confirmed that towns cannot do this on their own motion. So the legal advice they've received is consistent with what the state law says and with what the New York State Association of Towns has provided, that they can't just say, we don't want to take responsibility for the vote, we're going to put it to the public on their own. So that would be why the town hasn't done that, is because the state does not specifically permit that. The state law does not. Only villages can do that.
So the other places that allowed the vote were villages and not towns?
I will say that, so I guess I'll go one step further, Nadine. I would say that then, by your legal opinion, that perhaps some of the towns that did put it to referendum, I would say it's not binding then, and it was more of a...
So the vote isn't binding?
It's not fair for me to say it that.
I'm not gonna comment on the other towns.
Right, I know,
municipalities, but I'm gonna keep my mouth shut on what they've chosen to do. I'm just saying what the legal advice has been from Association of Towns, as well as what the actual state law says.
I mean, when you consider,
I understand.
When you consider how many people have so many opinions about this, that we can't have our say. I mean, this is America. I don't understand.
So the way the law actually reads is that if a municipality, as when I started in the beginning, if you allow it, the town doesn't have to do anything, okay? And actually imposing regulations isn't even something that the town has to do. That's an opportunity for the town to try to put parameters on it to the extent possible. However, if you opt out, I will say the state legislature structured this in such a way that opting out was made much more difficult than staying in. Draw your own conclusions from that, okay? But if this board had adopted or enacted a local law that would have opted out of this, such as they did with on-site consumption establishments, There are two things. There are the sale, the retail dispensaries, and then there's the on-site consumption. This board did opt out of retail consumption.
I'm glad about
Or I'm sorry, not retail consumption, I misspoke. On-site consumption, thank you. When they opted out of that, the way that law is structured, again, this is pursuant to the Cannabis Law, Section 131. The way it's structured is if they opt out, it's subject to permissive referendum, which means that the local law was adopted by them, but if the people in this community, the citizens, wanted to petition this board to hold a referendum on it, if they had filed a certain number of petitions, which is based upon how many voted in the last gubernatorial election, okay, it's a little convoluted, which I won't put to here, but if they had filed those petitions with the town clerk within a certain time period after the passage of that local law, they could force it to go to a vote. So the state actually structured the cannabis law to say, if you're gonna opt out, the people get a vote. But if you don't wanna opt out, if you're just gonna stick with it, then the people don't have a say. Again, draw your own conclusions from that. I'm just telling you what the law says. So with this, they've opted out of the on-site establishments. If you opt out of the retail establishments, the retail dispensaries, then any of you don't have the opportunity as a municipality to derive any of the tax revenue that comes from that. Whether that's big, small, significant, whatever, I have no idea. Your speculation is, yeah, I don't know. But that's the dynamics of the situation. So that's why they did not just say, put it to the people, because under New York State law, the town cannot just say, what this town board cannot just say on any matter that they don't want to take a vote on or they don't want to have to take a position on, put it to the people, make them vote on it. There's only actually a very few things, very, very few things that the town board on its own motion can put to the people for a vote. That's just the way our state legal system works.
So you really have no idea how much money is going to be made for the town?
Not a clue.
Yeah.
A lot.
And,
Well, it's actually, it's the most that can be derived, quite frankly, is about 1%. Because the state,
each sale, is that?
so the state, the way it's structured is the sales tax, if that would be eligible to county and town and village is 4%. And I believe the county is at 2% that the county takes from the 4%. And then the other is divided, like I said, it's a little convoluted, but I believe 1%?
I think it's
It may be 1%.
And then the town and village, if the
Share the-
dispensary's in the village.
Yeah, so the most you're talking is like, it's not very much. They really.
1%
Yeah.
at most.
It's very,
Now, you mentioned 2 places. Does that mean if you vote on this, there'll be 2 places in the town that'll be sold that you can?
We don't know what interest there's gonna be to have dispensaries.
So you're just going to start with one?
We don't know.
We're starting
And
with
the
none.
Cannabis Control Board at the state may set parameters of, you can't have them, you gotta be 5 miles apart or something, or who knows what they may come up with.
And that wouldn't be possible?
This is all an evolving thing and probably won't get all ironed out for 2 or 3 years till the final word is out on everything, so. It's,
I mean, my concern is because of the use of it, it's going to be the same problem that drinking while driving.
well, that's why we opted out of the smoking establishments. We didn't want to exasperate
But
that
once you
driving
let
under
this
the
in-
influence thing.
But once you let this in, the smoking establishments will come in the future. I mean, we have had medicinal cannabis. That led to recreational cannabis being legal or being,
Illegal.
being legal to purchase. And the establishments will only come. I mean, I'm convinced that that's the way it's going to end up. And then there'll be more accidents, there'll be more everything that we already are struggling with. I mean, we have a big drug problem. This is only adding to the drug problem.
I can't understand why the state approved this to begin with.
That's right.
But that's where it started, at the state level.
So I think,
So I guess you're a no, Joan.
oh, I am. You can count on that no forever. So I guess I've said what I wanted to ask. I've found out what I wanted to ask. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else opposed to this local
I
law?
would be opposed to it also. If I were gonna vote on it, I'd say no.
Okay.
And I don't even know what the other towns.
I have received no definitive word from the village yet. They have discussed it. They haven't said, no, they're not gonna allow it. Lysander, I've talked to the supervisor over there. Looks like they're probably gonna follow the same format we have here. Geddes, what did they vote?
I
Geddes?
thought they were already into this.
Geddes voted to allow it. The vote was, now, based on what Nadine said, I guess the town board still has to vote. The election yesterday and what they voted on yesterday isn't the final word, I guess.
Well,
So,
if you're going to allow it, remember, they don't have to do anything.
Right.
You only have to do something to opt out, and if you're gonna opt out, they have to do that by December 31st.
Camillus, I believe, voted to allow it.
Yes.
The village of Camillus voted not to allow it. And beyond that, I don't know if Manly has voted or not, I can't
I
remember.
think Kelly voted too, didn't they? Didn't they?
They may have, I'm not sure. But anyone else opposed to this local law? We now have about 14,800 people in town, and there's 2 of you here opposed to it. So, it's just,
This wasn't very well advertised unless I'm looking in the wrong place. I mean, I've searched for these meetings, I've searched the messenger, I've looked for,
they were in the messenger, they've been on our website.
it wasn't, well, I didn't look at the website, I should have done that, but I would think it would be in bold, you know, I was surprised that so few people showed up tonight.
I will just share that I represent a number of municipalities. A firm represents a number of municipalities. And this is pretty consistent with what most municipalities experience. There is very, there's not, I think people anticipated a lot of public turnout and it has not materialized for whatever reason.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Nadine, but this law isn't if we want to have the dispensary or not. This is just identifying what and where and when the dispensaries will take place.
We're regulating where the
Yeah,
dispensaries
so this
can
is
be.
not if we are going to allow one or not. So just be clear, and maybe that's why
Okay.
many people didn't come out, because we're just talking about the regulation of the dispensary itself.
Because you don't have to vote opt out
Right.
tonight.
Correct.
You just have to decide.
Doing nothing means it's okay.
But we would rather put some regulations in place before people start coming and seeking permits or however this process is gonna go down, so.
The governor only appointed the members of the Marijuana Control Board a couple weeks ago. So it was in April, I believe, that the legislature passed this, and the members were only appointed a few weeks ago, so we don't have regulation, we have no idea. I mean, they will establish the criteria, so at this point, it's anybody's guess.
So you said it's a county legislators?
No.
The state.
State.
So it appears to me that the state is looking for something for the state.
They're looking for revenue.
They're looking for
I mean, why
revenue.
would they give you a deadline of December 31st? It just seems like the
They
state
need the
has
money.
something in it for themselves. Yeah, right.
Well, these sales aren't gonna start immediately either. This Cannabis Control Board has to put all the parameters into place, so I'm guessing it may be into 2023 before sales actually start.
Also, to let you know, Assemblyman Magnarelli had a town hall, virtual town hall back in February, I believe. And on that Zoom call, he did talk about the fact that New York City was the area pushing for the sales of marijuana. And albeit that the upstate regions weren't as proactive for it, it was still going to happen regardless of what we say. And so I specifically, and Darcy, you were on that call as well, said that you had better be looking at what Colorado did years ago, the problems they face, and as the comptroller said, you have to put money in the New York State budget to handle the back-end problems
Mental
that's
health
going to come.
and treatment centers.
The treatment, the mental health, whatever. And he did say, yes, that would be in